Welcome to the Top Dog Mindset Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of running a successful dog training business. I'm your host, Kevin, joined by my co-host, Angel. Together, we bring you expert insights, inspiring stories, and practical tips. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we're here to provide you with the necessary information to build a thriving dog training company. So relax, join us with a cup of coffee as we explore the Top Dog Mindset Podcast.
All right, welcome in, everybody. We have another episode of the Top Dog Mindset podcast here. And today we are joined by one of our clients and a very good friend of mine, Bethany from Be the Boss Dog Training. And she's been kind enough to come on here and just talk about growing her dog training business, which is based out in Utah. We got some really cool stuff we're going to be talking about. So what I really wanted to emphasize on the call today was something that I think Bethany does extremely well, which is building communities. So she has a pack walk that she has that's open to the public. She has a group class that she offers to her current clients, and then an online community as well. And that's kind of like ever growing and expanding. So I want to get into that, but Bethany, why don't you just do me a favor and just like real quick, tell everyone a little bit about you, who you are, and just like about your company.
Yeah, so I'm Bethany. I'm in Utah. I started my company because I quit my steady job. I quit it. I asked my husband, hey, is it okay if I try this crazy thing called dog training? And if it doesn't work out, then I'll get another job somewhere else. And my husband was very kind. And so I started training the end of 2016, literally started in the rescue business to build my skills. And then I started training for free / for like $25. And I've done it all. I've done board and trains, day training, boarding. And I've settled into private lessons. And that's mainly because my business is a reflection of me, and I am very people focused. And I am very much a type of person that wants to teach people how to fish and not just give them a fish. And my dogs and my experience with training my dogs changed my whole world. And so I'm hoping to offer that to my clients as well if they accept my invitation.
That's so cool. Yeah. I'm just going to say this, I apologize to any of our other clients, but Bethany is 100% like the gold star student that I've ever worked with. Because I've never seen anybody who is as good at implementing as you are. I think that's the reason that you have such a successful company. And it's not like you're the only dog trainer in your market. There's other people there, right? And
Right.
you find a way to always be very creative. And yeah, I mean, we have calls where we talk, and you and Sid do a very good job of like implementing just, whatever it is that we talk about. And, a really good example of this is when we first started working together years ago, we didn't even do any paid ads. We launched your business off of organic traffic in a Facebook group.
On
And I just think
Facebook of all places, which anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
no, it's okay. I mean, because I know if you wouldn't mind, like we can talk about your experience with social media and stuff like that. I know there was like a hesitancy for you in the beginning there, but I think a lot of people like really struggle to market themselves. And like you built we built a very fairly complex funnel together in the beginning where you were like friending people, adding them to the group, DMing people, and making a lot of sales out of that group. So that's not normal. And so I'd love to hear you kind of talk about that because like you still have that group and you built your business that way. And yeah, I mean, this is going to tie into all the other conversations we're going to have today. But yeah, just love to hear like your perspective on that and kind of like just thinking back on when we got started together.
Yeah, so we started in Facebook and it felt so icky. It felt so icky to friend random people and then invite them to my group. And literally every time I did it, I'd have to go shower, right? It just felt so icky, but it worked. And so to me, it's not about feelings, it's about results. And because it was working, I kept doing it. And we built a community of people who just it's a community of people who are not ready yet. Hold on one second. Stop.
You're good.
Okay, go lay down. Go.
This is good. We get to see the training in like real time. Yeah. Here's the proof that your training works.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Let me make sure he's down. Lay down. Thank you. And so we built a community of random people who were not warm. They're not people coming off of Google. They're not people searching. And so it was interesting you have to actually care. You have to actually be their friends. You have to actually interact with these people. And we put them, our main goal was to advertise our pack walk at that time. And so how it started off was friending random people, interacting with them, inviting them to our pack walk. And once they got to our pack walk, that's where the real magic took off. Once they met me and my staff and my husband, that's where the real magic took off.
Right. Do me a favor, speak a little bit more on that whole thing of like you feeling gross. Like, where do you think that originated from you? Because I think there's a lot of people that can benefit from this, because I think a lot of times people just feel like, ooh, that's weird. I don't want to have to do that to grow my business. But I think a lot of times what you get faced with is like, either I'm going to grow this business or I'm not. And I can either wait 30 years for it to hopefully like organically grow through word of mouth, or you can start doing things today to start growing the company. So how did you work through that?
Yeah, well, Kevin, you know who you're talking to. You know, we're going to get a little bit deep in some instances. And
Please do.
for me, I grew up in a way where morality was attached to actions. Like, this is good, that's bad. You're being a good person, you're being a bad person. We do this, we don't do that. And so that's where that ickiness came from. So you really have to question what you've been taught. Like, you really have to question, okay, I've been taught X, Y, or Z my whole life, and you have to be willing to question that. You have to be courageous enough. It came down to courage. That's all
Wow.
it came down to. It didn't come down to being intelligent. It didn't come down at the beginning. It didn't come down to the right marketing strategy. It didn't come down to being smart. It came down to being courageous. And you have to, and when I say courageous, I mean questioning what the F we've been taught. And so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, just pure courage. I had no proof that it worked, but I've just been a courageous person most of my life, and so I just did it. So what helped me get over the icky thing was nothing. Nothing helps you get over that icky thing. Nothing's going to help you get over the icky thing the first time because you don't have any proof. So my answer is nothing. Nothing's going to help you. So you just have to be courageous.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like, you just need to do it.
Just do it. And that
Yeah.
sounds so trite, but for me personally, who I am, it helped me unravel a lot. It helped me unravel my whole belief system, essentially.
Yeah, so we may spend way more time talking about this actually than we will actually get into building communities, because I feel like this is actually deep down what most of us need to hear. And Angel, I want to hear from you on this as well, because I think everything that you just said there, Bethany, is so true, where there are things out there that exist, right? There's seminars you can go to, there's self-help books that you can read, but there's a moment where the rubber hits the road and you just decide, or need to decide, I should say, that I just need to do this thing. It's uncomfortable. What if I get a message back from somebody saying, you know, why'd you send me this friend request? Get out of my DMs, blah, 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 blah.
Which you will get, by the way.
Yeah, I still get stuff like that all the time. And now I'm just kind of like, whatever, you know, Facebook's weird. Anyway, moving on, you know? But Angel, I'd love to hear from you, because I know there's been a lot of instances in your life where you kind of had to put yourself out there outside of your comfort zone and just do things even against like your mind telling you like, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about this a lot, like talking about my personality. Like I've always been, naturally I'm an introvert. I'm not like a super, super talkative person, but just like the being in dog training, before this, I was training for about 11 years. And so naturally you have to be a people person. I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, I started working with dogs because I don't like working with people, but it's like, you can't get away from that. And so during my dog training career, that was something that I had to teach myself. I knew that I wasn't good at conversation with people. I knew I wasn't a natural. And so I really had to teach myself. And as cringy as it sounds, I've told you that I literally watched YouTube videos years ago on how to I think it was like mirror body language and stuff like that. So it's like, this is something that I have to learn in order to do what I want to do and be better about connecting with people, and which is then is going to help me, be better with sales and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. And I mean, even now, growing up, I've realized that really anything that feels uncomfortable, like I don't allow that to make me say like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's too cringy, or that makes me uncomfortable, or I'm super scared. I do stuff all the time that I am terrified about, but I'm like, if I do it now and I get it out of the way and I push past that uncomfortability and basically just get used to being okay with being uncomfortable for a little bit, then the next time I do it, it's going to be a little bit easier. And then, it's just going to be nothing to me. So that's something that I've learned over the years. And I love that I did that for myself, that I was able to push past that and be able to learn the things that I wanted to have in my personality, essentially. And now, yeah, like I said, I do have, more of that mindset of I'm uncomfortable with something, so it makes me want to do it a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. Super well said. Yeah. And I think that I can even lose touch with it sometimes of the fear. Bethany, you're reminding me of this, of like when you first get started and doing your first social media post and thinking to yourself, like, man, like my family's going to see this, or like my friends are going to see this. And like, this is weird and kind of cringy, you know? And I think that just stops people from doing it for years. And, you starting a group and sending out friend requests and doing Instagram stories and all that stuff. Like you could have 100% let yourself off the hook and been like, yeah, I don't know. That's just not really like what I want to do. And that's just not the way I want to grow this business. And you just didn't do that. And so I'd love to hear from more about that from you, because I know you've done so much introspection over the years and just self-reflection on yourself and building yourself up and stuff like that. I mean, do you mind kind of talking about that? Because I think a lot of times people struggle with like imposter syndrome or just the awkwardness of putting yourself out there. So I'd love to hear from you and just like more from you philosophically how you've worked through that.
Yeah, so you're asking how I worked through going from what I was when we met or before we met to what I am today, as far as
Yeah.
like putting myself out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one thing that gives me an advantage is I naturally like it. So I think that's part of my personality. I have a big ego and I really like to be center stage. So
Mhm.
that might give me an advantage, just a natural advantage over some people. If we're gonna talk on this podcast, let's be honest, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah. No, I think that's very true. Just to kind of like echo what you're saying. I know somebody who they're like, there's never been a camera that I don't want to be in front of. They said that to me one time, and I'm like, I'm not dying to be in front of the camera, but I don't mind it. And I think there's degrees to that where there's people who are like terrified, petrified of the camera. And I
Yeah.
think we all have our version of that. So I think that you having a natural like interest in being in front of the camera and stuff like that and putting yourself out there is a great starting place. But there are things that have 100% are had to have happened to you
Yeah.
along the way where you start having that feeling of anxiety going like, whoa, I don't know about this. That's a little bit too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a natural gift that I had, but you're saying let's talk about like the stuff that everybody experiences,
Yeah.
regardless if you
Yeah.
have that natural gift or not. So for me, and this might sound a little weird, but I had to get over my resentment, disgust, I'm better than people attitude. And
Okay.
I know that sounds weird, but like I grew up like in the dog training business as well. If they want my services, then they'll come to me. Like I don't have to grovel to them. Like if they want my services, they're going to come to me. And this like holier than thou attitude.
Yes, dude. This
And
is money. This is so true. I think everybody experiences this, but no, people don't clearly articulate this to themselves. So please keep going. This is very helpful.
And I think it's important to recognize that like that's well let me talk about myself because I can't speak to anybody else. What happened to me was I had to recognize that I was being a total jerk. That like thinking that way of like, well, if they wanted my services, then they wouldn't ask those questions. They would just come. Like they wouldn't just ghost me. They wouldn't just if they really wanted it and they were dedicated, then they would be my client. And that mentality is just so not the kind of person that I want to be. So, when it comes to like doing stuff on social media, the first hurdle I had to overcome was you're not better than people out there. Like who are you to think that you can sit behind your computer, go and train dogs, and that just because you exist, you're worthy of people coming to you? Like that is
Yeah.
such an entitlement attitude.
Right.
So that was the biggest hurdle, and it's not like I woke up one day and realized that. It took like a few years for that to click, to fall into place, and it still is. Like recently I've actually decided to up my game in social media and be humble enough to realize what what actually works versus what do I want to do, right? What I want to do doesn't mean it's going to work. And so you have to be humble enough to be like, and I'm going to say this in air quotations, you have to be the dancing monkey. Like, you have to.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you attach, again, that goes back to, if you attach morality to it, well, that's bad or good. Or if you think that you're entitled to people's attention, then you're not going to do it. Like, you have to get a realistic version of who you are in the world. I had to reevaluate my relationship with the world, and by that I mean I had to realize I was not all that in a bag of chips.
Yeah. That's really well said. Yeah, two things. First and foremost, as business owners, especially in the beginning, you were fighting a constant uphill battle against obscurity. Like, nobody knows who you are. And you can convince yourself, because you've had a couple of good case studies and helped some people, that you're like, everyone should want to work with me. And it's a very, like you're saying, it's a very egotistical way of looking at it. It's something I've done. And it's not something that you're like sitting there thinking that like constantly, but it's more just like a state of being of like, I do a good job. And so because of that, other people will come to me. Right. The other piece of this, which you're touching on, which I think is very helpful for even me to hear, is the morality thing. Because what it always thinks about is like, what I always think about is like, I'm above that. I don't need to do that. And I think the most important thing to consider is the most moral thing you can do, if you have a gift to bring into this world that you can help other people with, is to make them aware of that. And you're actually acting in an immoral manner because of your own self-centeredness and self-centered fear of not wanting to get out there and put yourself out there and be a little bit uncomfortable, because it's just not allowing you to help as many people. Are you guys following what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and for me, I don't know other people's experiences, but this is not free. There is a cost to this. And I've lost friends, I've lost family, I've lost people over this. And so just because it's what I want and I'm a better person and I can help more people, doesn't mean you don't pay for it. So a lot of times we get in our heads, oh, we're here on this podcast and we're teaching you, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. Everything has a cost. It's not that you pay a cost. It's not that one person pays a cost and they get something. Everybody is paying a price. What are you buying?
Right.
And for me, I'd rather pay the price that's going to buy me this extremely valuable gift. And what I mean by that is my valuable gift right now is changing who I am so I can value people, meet them where they're at, and help them. That's what I want to pay for.
Right.
And other people might be paying the price of, well, that makes me uncomfortable, and they'll come to me. So you're still paying a price, but what
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's a price to be paid for absolutely everything. And something I was thinking about recently as well is you pay a price for bringing on a client because you're tight on money and need to pay your bills that you shouldn't have brought on in the first place, right? Because either they walk away unsatisfied and now you have a pissed off person walking around out there and maybe saying negative thing about your business online, or you have to refund them. So that's exactly right. You're either like paying money, time. It can be like a reputational price. It can be a relationship price, because yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear more from you on that actually, because you have like gone through a very transformative experience in your life where people have, they always say reason, season, or lifetime. People come into your life, and we've seen, all of that occur. And how do you feel like your business and just like the growth that you've needed to, like create and go through in your own life has affected other relationships?
I wish I had more accurate words, so I'm gonna do my best. So the first step was the courage that we talked about just recently. When I decided to be courageous and do different things, I immediately noticed that the people who were my ride and die people were no longer my ride and die people. And that was something I had to grieve over, because I couldn't go back. Once you're courageous and you try it and it works, you can't go back, right? You can't unsee what you've seen.
Right.
So I lost a best friend who was my mentor in dog training. And the way it changed my relationships was, believe it or not, it wasn't our training methodologies. It wasn't our it wasn't our belief systems. It wasn't our hobbies. It wasn't anything like that. It was other people held on to their morality so hard that they saw me as the wrong one. And so that's what killed a lot of my relationships, was other people holding on to their morality. They needed certainty so badly that I became the bad one, the wrong one, the lost one. And there was no curiosity about what I was doing. And there was no room for me to exist, meaning the only way those people interacted with me was from authority figure to child. And so I was like, that's not how I have relationships. I don't put up with people who treat me as a child anymore. And that wasn't even the problem. The problem was when I spoke aloud and I said, hey, I'm seeing this in our relationship and I'm not okay with it. So it wasn't even that we had that problem, right? Like, you can have a problem in your relationship. It can even be authority child problem. It was when I spoke. It was when I stood up and I said, hey, I'm not okay with this relationship. And I would ask for an apology, or I would speak what I was seeing. And then that's when the relationship ended. So it wasn't that we had different belief systems. It wasn't even that we got in a imbalance, like a power imbalance. It was when I spoke up and I said, hey, I'm seeing this, and I pointed it out, that the people literally wrote me an email and said, I can't be friends with you with those stipulations, and left. And that just shocked me. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah.
I guess how it changed me was when I became open to meeting people where they were at, when I became open to becoming more humble and realizing it is more important to meet them where they're at than to be right, that I started losing all these relationships.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all that. That's super helpful for me to hear. And I've been through instances like that in my life. And the thing that I always think is so fascinating about running a business and growing a business is the problems and the challenges that you face later on when your business matures are not necessarily the things that you thought were going to be the problems when you first started. You know, like for me, it's like, it's always weird stuff that's like more of a hang up. You think in the beginning, it's like the really challenging thing is like, how am I going to get clients and get results and all that stuff, keep everybody happy? And yeah, that gets harder at scale. But there's weird instances like this that are like very emotionally challenging, where you think you have a relationship and then that changes and now you're dealing with that. And that can really diminish you. And you can kind of start thinking, second guessing yourself, like, am I crazy? Did I do something wrong? And yeah, I mean, I just think that that's a really interesting thing. So Angel, I'd love to hear from you, because I know that you've probably been through some stuff like this in your life, and you probably ways you can relate to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually going to chime in and say that I've definitely gone through like very, very similar experiences during that time period. Well, I wouldn't say time period, because even now, I'm still doing things to try to grow and better myself as a person. But during that like very specific time a few years ago, when I was like really deep in that growth, same thing. I was losing relationships over it. And it was just about like standing up for myself and speaking up like when I needed to speak up, versus just like keeping my mouth shut just for the sake of peace, putting down boundaries and stuff like that. And I found myself losing relationships, and some of them were, for the better. Even now, like, I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing, because like the people who have stuck around, they have now seen me in so many different seasons in my life, and, super weak points and super strong ones and all that kind of stuff. And they stick around. And I now feel more comfortable with getting into new relationships and meeting people, and developing stronger relationships, even with like family members and stuff like that. I go into those situations more confident, because I know the type of person that I am now and the type of relationship I'm able to withhold. And so it's like I feel confident holding up my end. And so as long as they're able to do that with me, I know this is going to be a strong relationship, friendship, family, like I said, any type of relationship. So I know that just moving forward, any of those relationships that I'm a part of are going to be stronger than what I've experienced in the past, knowing that, I don't really like put down boundaries or speak up during times that I need to. So I've definitely like lost relationships over the years, but now all the ones that I do have are pretty solid.
Yeah. And I just want to say there's that saying that people want to see you do well, just not better than them. And I've experienced that many times in my life where it's like, I had a falling out not that long ago, a couple years ago with somebody, and I noticed that when I was not doing well in life and we could commiserate together, the relationship was at its healthiest point. And as soon as I started doing better, I noticed things, not even financially, but just like physically, stuff like that, when I wasn't as pessimistic, when I wasn't as negative and just speaking about how, kind of the victim mindset and stuff like that of like the world is out to get me, that whole thing, that as soon as I started to kind of migrate away from that, all of a sudden it put a strain on the relationship. And I think people can be two peas in a pod where like you're in the same exact situation, all things are good, but as soon as like somebody wants to kind of go in a different direction, it can start making the other person feel very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So with that being said, I want to get into the whole community building thing because Bethany, it's something you do such a great job at. So do me a favor, give everyone a little bit of context here. Talk about, we talked about the Facebook group, you talk about how you grew that, and then you have this awesome pack walk that you do that is like pretty much a cult as far as I can gather, like so do you mind talking about that a little bit and just kind of like how you built that?
Yeah, so we, believe it or not, Kevin, somebody years ago in your group, this was the best thing that came from your business coaching. I wasn't doing pack walks.
It wasn't even from me. It was from somebody else in the community.
So it was Kevin's community of all the dog
Yeah.
trainers, and they said they did pack walks. And I was like, I should start that. So the idea actually originated here in your program.
Good.
And then I have video. I just posted it in a reel on my group. My very first pack walk, I think there was 5 people. And so I just advertised it in my Facebook group, and then I joined a bunch of different like local cities and posted it there. Excuse me. And I remember because Sid wasn't doing it with me at the time. I remember driving together with him. He was going to drop me off or something like that. And he was like, I'm so proud of you, Bethany. And I was like, nobody's going to show up. I'm like, we're going to sit at this park in the car and watch as nobody shows up. I'm calling it right now. And I saw like one person was there. And I was like, oh, one person came. And then I think like obviously I think 4 more trickled in. And I literally had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew that, okay, we're supposed to walk, so let's walk. And so everybody started walking, and then I just started talking as if I was doing a lesson. Like I didn't write anything down. I didn't have anything planned. Kevin, you know me. I tend to jump into the deep end with no life raft and then grab onto you when I'm drowning, and then I figure it out.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And so it went really, really well. Of course, in the moment, you don't know how it's going because you're so in your head that you don't know how it's going. How you feel about it is not how it actually is. And that's why I like to have somebody recording, because then I can go back and watch it and be like, oh, I looked so professional. I didn't feel that way, but it looked that way. So that's where it started. And then believe it or not, like the people that showed up and that were dedicated, like all of my staff members have come from them, all of my trainers have come from them. So the people who show up to your pack walks, it's not them making you look good. It is people showing up, and if you're smart enough, you can take advantage of the good people that show up. If you're a good business owner and a good leader, you will realize that they are an asset to you. You're not their hoity-toity, they're showing up for me, I'm amazing. You need to be grateful that these amazing people show up, and you need to be smart enough to use them.
Wow, that's really cool. So yeah, that's a good reminder for me. All of your employees and yeah, like the good people in your life you surround yourself with have pretty much come from that pack walk.
Yeah. Yep.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. Because just to touch on that real quick, a lot of times people say like, I want to hire somebody. Where do I find them? And it's like,
if you are asking, where do I find these good people? I would challenge you, and I'd give you an invitation. And I would say, there's something that needs to change in your mentality. If you're surrounded by people who attend your pack walks and clients, and you're asking, who do I hire? there's something wrong with your mindset. You're surrounded by these good people. And so I don't know what that looks like. I can only speak to my company, and I've realized that literally my revelations and my experience is only for me. But I would just throw that out there, that there's something wrong with the way you're thinking if you're surrounded by amazing clients and you're asking, where do you hire people?
That's really good advice. No, I think that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, talk a little bit about that. Like, did you just identified talent there, right? Clients, people at the pack walk, and you just were like, hey, started a conversation. Hey, are you looking to? Would you be interested in training dogs for my company? Right?
Yeah. So the first person that ever happened with, as I watched the video that I took of the first pack walk, one of the first staff members was there, and then somebody who was there at my very first pack walk, she was there last week. Like she still comes, and she's fully trained her dog without going through our program. That's how dedicated she was.
Which is like, God bless. I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you got results.
Yeah.
Because I just did, not to derail us, but I just want to say, I think that's the reason sometimes people don't do this, because they're like, I'm giving away free training. And it's like, okay, someone got their dog trained for free, but you had somebody who's an absolute ride or die loyalist to your company who tells everyone about you.
Yeah. And you can't pay for that kind of loyalty. Like I haven't
Right.
paid her anything, and she refers me all over Facebook.
Yeah.
So the first person was, and I remember very distinctly asking him, and I I remember being like, who am I to ask this person to come work for me? And at the time I wasn't paying anybody. So I literally was asking somebody to come do this for free. And I literally was like, I have no business. I have no right doing this. This is rude. Like, I am infringing on this gentleman. Like, I have no right to do this. And literally everything good in my life that I have now is because I asked when I had no right to ask. And so because I recognized that he was showing up regularly. So don't ask somebody who you see once. That's kind of ridiculous. But if you see somebody showing up all the time, I asked him, I said, hey, his name is Rob, and he's amazing. He doesn't work for us anymore, but he's still amazing. We still chat. And I said, hey, Rob, I said, you're here all the time. And I said, he had an amazing energy. He was super calm, and he had that great leadership quality of speaking up with super calm. And I said, you have something that I can't train. I can't teach somebody that. Can you help me with my pack walks? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, what? Like, I wasn't expecting him to say yes. I was expecting him to say no. But he said yes. And so he started leading the pack walk. And then because that worked and that was successful, I would pick out people who would regularly come and who I thought would have the right energy. And so then all of a sudden I had like 4 or 5 people, and I didn't start paying people for my pack walk until like a year and a half into it. Like everybody was doing it for free. So my husband is very sweet, and he's like, oh, that's because you're so amazing, Bethany. It's just your personality. And I'm like, I think more of it was just asking. I think literally it was just asking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, and that is a mindset thing, right? Where it's like, I can't ask this person, or I can't do that. It's like, why not? Just go have the conversation.
Yeah.
The worst that happens is they say no. That's the absolute worst.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where it started, was being courageous, asking where I had no business asking. And then for those of you, I don't know if anybody out there is like me, but when crying is not a bad thing.
All right, let's just put that out there. I didn't know where this was going, but okay. Let's just put that out there.
Going home, I cannot tell you, and I still implement this method today. When I have moments that don't go my way, that I am terrified, that I have those doubts creep back in, I will literally hit pause. It is more important to put off those phone calls, whatever it looks like for you. For me, it looks like closing my eyes, taking a deep breath, eating chocolate, getting a hug from a close friend. For me, it's my husband. And just being like, wow, that really sucked. That did not go the way that I wanted it to at all. And that person thinks I'm crazy. And then just sitting in that and being like, okay, I've got my cry out. I'm good. I think I can go take a phone call now.
Yeah. No, I actually fully agree with everything you just said. And, it's funny. I watched a documentary a while ago, probably about a year ago now, and it was on Netflix, and it was Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary. And he talked about how when he would have certain things in his life not go the way he wanted them to, he would give himself a day. And he's like, I would lay in my bed and I would cry and I would mope and I would think about how like the world is against me and how like I got victimized and all that stuff. He's like, and the next day I would get back to it. And I think that there's certain people that probably can rebound quicker than the next. But yeah, it's like, is it a problem of every day you're feeling that way? And, like just like abdicating responsibilities? Yeah, that's a problem. Like you can't get down like that. But if every once in a while, like you really feel like this emotionally wrecked me and I need a moment to collect myself, I think that trying to push through that and not acknowledging that, that's how you end up burning out. I think that's the type of stuff that causes burnout, and causes all this resistance to just be like, screw this. I'm closing this business. I'm done with this. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah. And it's an invitation to, if it's happening every day, that's an invitation to inspect why is it happening every day? Because it
Yeah.
was happening every day for me.
Mhm.
It was. And it was an invitation to be like, I think for me, when it was happening every day, again, we don't attach morality to it. You're not a bad person because it's happening every day.
Right.
For me, my personal revelation was it's not your fault. You didn't start this, but what are you going to do about it?
That's exactly right. That's the whole idea of generational trauma. It's not your fault that this happened to you, but it is your responsibility to stop the cycle. And that's something that you are very, very good at. Like you're one of the most self-aware people when we talk about just like life and how you will talk about yourself and things you're really good at, shortcomings. And there's a lot of people who either don't acknowledge what they're good at because like they've been so beaten down and like saying I'm good at something at one point or another was told like, hey, you sound conceited and you can't speak about yourself that way. Or on the other side of things, there's people who think they're the greatest, God's gift to creation, and they're actually not as good as they might think.
Yeah.
But I think self-awareness is a big part of this. But I also just want to go back to something that you were talking about before, Bethany, that I think is really powerful that all of us need to hear, which is you may start a pack walk and you may get nobody to show up. You may post something on social media and you get 0 likes on it. You may go live and nobody watches your video, right? You may even get a nasty comment, but that doesn't mean that you don't do it.
Well, and I still, to this day, I have social media to do today. And still to this day, that happens. It still happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what are you talking about more specifically? Like the friction and the like the hesitation to do it? Are you talking about?
I'm talking about the tension and the friction between what I believe is true and reality.
Okay.
Reality is your best teacher. Reality is your best teacher. And so let me give you a specific example. I have a lot of posts that are scheduled that I really love. I spent a lot of time on. And I'm going to tell you where my ego gets a little big, which I kind of laugh at, and my ego is my friend now. But it gets posted and then like crickets. Like nobody. And I'm like, F, man. Like that was so good.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is I allow myself to be like, yeah, that was amazing. You spent a lot of time on that. You learned a lot. You did a lot of research. Reality is your kindest teacher. Reality is going to tell you if it works or not, and it doesn't care about your feelings. And if you can make friends with reality, if you can learn to just be like, I loved it, but it didn't work. That is so tough, man. I don't even have an answer for that because I don't literally, I think it's the constant tension and that wrestle where I try something and it totally flops and I'm like, okay, reality. I mean, life will teach you. And I know so many people who don't let it teach them. They're just like, well, other people are dumb. That's why it didn't work. And I'm like, no, maybe it's trying to teach you something. So anyways, there's that. I don't even have an answer for it. It's just because every time it's painful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is such a good reminder. And this is what I always think about on this topic is this is perfectly in line with just marketing in general. Like the root word of marketing is market. And what I always think about is you can be misaligned with what the market is actually looking for. And so Kevin can love something, right? Angel, Bethany, we can all love our individual thing that we created, but then you put it out there and you get corrected by the market where it's like, yeah, no one actually gives a shit, and that's like super painful. And I've done videos where like I pour my heart and soul into them. And I think it's going to be super helpful. And if people listen to this, I really think that this can make a big impact in their business and nobody cares. And then I do like a stupid dance on TikTok and people are like, I want more of that. Do that again. It's like, oh God, why do you want to see that? But the point is like, that's just business in general. It's like, you can think you have the greatest idea in the world and you put it out there and nobody cares. And it's like, well, that sucks, but that's just the market correcting you. In reality, it's just teaching you what's actually happening.
Yeah. And I think here's a layer underneath that for those who are interested. The reality is that I'm not the smartest person out there, and that's tough for people to like. So I realize that copying what works is the best way to be successful.
Yeah, 100%.
So many people think that like, no, what I have is better than what's out there. And I'm like, no, sweetheart, like you're not the smartest person out there. I'm not either. So if you copy the smart people, and that will make you successful. And so many people don't want to eat that slice of humble pie. And the layer underneath that is you're not smart. You're not the smartest one out there. You don't know what makes the market work.
Right.
Copy people that do, and you'll be successful. And I don't even know, Kevin, maybe an Angel, maybe you can tell me since you're more into marketing, but that was a piece of humble pie I had to eat when I was like, I have this good idea. And it's so funny and it's amazing. But literally when I just started copying people who are smarter than me, that's when I started being successful.
100%. Angel, I'd love to hear from you on this, but I have a couple things that I always think about. It's like, this is why people, as soon as like something is working in the digital marketing world, people just start funnel hacking the shit out of it. They start like trying to use software to like look at your ads and your targeting and your audience and what is your offer and what like landing page people like. That is the most common thing in any sort of digital marketing coaching community I've ever been a part of. Like, that's pretty much what it boils down to is like, figure out what's working and don't try and reinvent the wheel. Put your spin on it and don't just like carbon copy it and like, pretend like I came up with this. But at the end of the day, yeah, what I always think about too is it's like the age old, where does Burger King know to put their next location?
McDonald's.
Right where McDonald's put theirs, And so that's a really powerful thing to think about. Yeah. I mean, and then I'd love to hear from you talking about just going back to communities and stuff like that, the online community that you have as well. Like that's doing very well. And I'd love to hear from you on that because I know that's something that a lot of people would like to do on their end as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a plug for Kevin here because with your program, we get high level.
Mm-hmm.
And because before I was a dog trainer, I worked as an executive assistant project manager in a software section of a billion-dollar company. And so I love technology. And so I have put all my fingers in all the places in high level. And sometimes even with Rose, we're like, can we do this? And she's like, I have no idea. Let me research it.
Well, honestly, it's been so good for our company because I feel like it makes us like learn things that we otherwise wouldn't have a reason to,
Yeah. So we delved into the app portion and the courses and products portion and totally screwed everything up the first time because that's a guarantee. The first time is the screw up time. So, but now what we have is I learned, and this goes back to kind of the marketing, what we're talking about. I learned that Kevin taught me this, the sales funnel, which is very basic, but I didn't know this at the time, right? The big opening and then the
top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel. Yeah.
And literally like every business owner I talk to is talking to people at the top of the funnel like they're in the bottom of the funnel.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so what I've learned is with our Facebook group, that's the top of the funnel, and pack walks are just a little bit farther down. And so the app that we have, so we use the app for the courses. So I have, when COVID hit, I did all my all my training into online courses. But then we expanded the app and there's a community section. And so that is solidly in the middle of the funnel. And the bottom of the funnel is actually like private lessons, excuse me. And so how we use that community is we use that community. Number one, we have a product there where it's Ask Your Trainer, and we have automation set up where when people sign up with us and they're assigned a trainer, when they push that button, it messages us and we send out a text to the trainer. So that's part of the function, is now they're connected one-on-one with their trainer, which people absolutely love. And then the community there is paid clients. So people who are totally invested in our company. So that's where I put all of like Bethany's philosophical ramblings. I don't do too much of that because that's still a lot for people, and I still think that people want to hear me talk. So but so that is that's where I put the, like, I will take controversial videos from YouTube and do like the talking head over it and be like, this is what I think of this, right? So I can do controversial videos there. Holy Hannah, I don't do that in the Facebook group because that's a great way to get people to hate you. But I do it in I do it in the app, in that community in the app. And then also it's a great way to announce, what I love is I will announce in the Facebook group, I'll clip like 20 seconds of that video and put it for free in the Facebook group, and then I'll push people to join our community for the full version. So is that kind of what you were thinking, Kevin? That there are so many moving parts to it now that I don't want to like go off on this tangent.
No, I know you're trying to, that was very helpful. And I think what we're trying to do here is speak in the like highest level possible to give everyone like a brief overview of what you're doing. And I know that it gets like super technical, and I don't want to get bogged down in like how you set it up and all that stuff. Just revisiting for a second what you were talking about with like the top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel. I think that could be a really good thing to kind of like, wrap up this call with, because I think like you're, even though you said before, I'm not the smartest person, you are a very smart person. And even when I explained that to you, you're like, oh, that makes sense. And it just never been laid out there like that for me before. And it was the same thing for me. And when you think about it, it's like you're funneling, you're putting people in your pipeline, into your funnel, and they're funneling into your business, And so a lot of times people treat, like you were saying before, Bethany, the people who are at the top of the funnel just entering like they're at the bottom, and they ignore the people who are at the bottom. And so what I always think about is like, there are people in your pipeline who you had a great consultation with, and for whatever reason, they didn't buy. And maybe they just were like a little bit hung up on the money. But if you were to reach back out to them now, they'd probably tip over the edge and fall in and buy. And everyone is so concerned about like the top of the funnel, like what's the lead that came in today? And it's not that that doesn't matter. Like you want to jump on those leads and get them set for consultations. And that's a whole nother thing, like treating leads that are at the top of the funnel like they are at the bottom of the funnel and ready to buy. A new lead is at the top of the funnel. Like they need to be nurtured and brought along so that they do buy. But it's important to get to those people quickly. But pipeline management, what that's all about is identifying, who have I spoken with? Who have I had a great relationship with? And maybe they weren't ready to buy at the time, but now they are. And can I get in touch with those people and stay in constant communication with them, because they're already warmed up. You've already done all the heavy lifting. It's just a matter of like getting them at the right time and the right moment to get them to fall into place and become a client of yours. So this is something that you guys do extremely, extremely well. And I want to hear just like your overall philosophical like belief on this, because you've done it a bunch of different ways. You've had other people answer calls for you. You've gone back to doing your own appointment setting. You've closed. Your husband Sid has closed. And so like, do you mind talking about just like the different iterations of that and like where you've landed and where you are now?
Yeah. So it started with me doing everything. And that worked until I hired Kevin. And then he took me from like $2,000 a month to $20,000 a month.
Yeah. Which the goal was like, I want to make 5K, no more than that. And then, And then that changed very quickly, but.
Yeah. So with me doing everything, and then I pulled my husband in because he's watched me train, helped us train our dogs. And then, so we were doing it together, and then we pulled in somebody to take calls for us, and that was a big flop. And so we went back to taking calls, and then we pulled in somebody to do consults for us, and that was a big flop. And when I say a big flop, I mean at that time. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying at that time for us, we were too small for that. And so now where we're at is we are running Google ads, and we have our Facebook group where we advertise, and we have our pack walk. So I feel like there's Google ads, and that's a whole sales funnel on its own because it's warmed up people, and they call, and we set up consults, and they sign up, right? And then there's the Facebook group, which is people who are struggling and ask questions. And I'm like a Venus flytrap, just waiting for like the little fly to land, right?
It's well said.
So that then I pull them in that way. And then there's our pack walks, which is anybody and everybody can come and get help. And that just occasionally snares somebody in there. But we also use the pack walk to get people to come in. So where we're at now is, and we just made a change because we're at that, my company's at that awkward stage where we're almost big enough to have somebody do the sales calls and the consults, but not quite. And so we're at the point where what I really like is not having one person do too many jobs. Because you can hire one person and be like, oh, they can do that too, or they can do that too, or they can do that too. And then all of a sudden your whole company is mediocre.
Right.
So right now, my husband quit his job, Kevin, literally once a week, I say this. I look at my husband and I go, you should have kept your job, honey. I don't think this is working out. Because at one point, my husband was making $4,000 a month. And I was like, I don't know, Sid. I don't think we should have given up that steady $4,000 paycheck.
Yeah. Well, just for reference, do you mind sharing where you guys are at right now, like on an average month?
Yeah. So I called Kevin. I was at about $2,000 a month. And that was nice enough to like pay the mortgage on our house. Well, when we bought in 2019, not now. And I called Kevin and I was like, hey, I've heard good things about you. I don't trust you at all. I don't know who you are, and I don't believe you can do what you say, but talk to me. And Kevin, I think we had 2 phone calls then, but each phone call was like an hour and a half each time. And then I was like, okay, I'll give you, literally I was making $2,000 a month, and I think you wanted like 1,500 or something.
Yeah.
So it was literally, I'm going to fly to New York and kick your ass if you don't give me what I want. I mean, sorry, New Jersey. Yes, it is New York.
I was going to say, you're not finding me in New York often, but yeah, close enough.
And then, so it literally was that step of, I have no proof. It was that step of being courageous. That's all it was. And so where we're at now, and so literally, I think the next month I was at 10,000. The next month I was at 15,000. Then literally within 3 months, I couldn't keep up with my business anymore. I hit 20,000. And that was me literally. And I was like, I can't keep this. I can't do phone calls, consults, train. I couldn't do it all. So now that was me. So then I pulled my husband in, and then I hired Roberta for Facebook stuff. And now we're at 50, 60 a month.
Wow, dude. That's incredible.
Yeah, with 5 or 6 trainers. And Kevin, we were just talking about, we're right on the brink of, it'll be an easy push to, I'm eyeing that 83,333. Not that I'm keeping track of it, to hit that
I know that
$1,000 a year. So
that's awesome.
That's where we're at. And when I talked to Kevin, I was convinced that this was not possible. There was no way he could have convinced me in any way, shape, or form that I could have $1 million. There was no way he could have convinced me.
Wow.
So, I mean, what changed? I think for me, it was being open to the possibility that I don't know everything. If you're convinced that you know everything, then where you're at is where you're going to stay.
Right. Yeah. And Bethany, I appreciate you sharing all of that. And that's why I started off this interview with saying that, like, you are literally like our gold star student, because there's a lot of people who hire you. And I'm sure there's dog trainers listening to this that can identify with this, where they want their problem fixed. But then when you get the prescription as far as what it's actually going to require of you to get that problem fixed or get that desired outcome that you want, people are like, well, that's not what I want. I don't want to do that, you know? And it just comes down to like, how far are you willing to go? And you realize that people who have really successful businesses, there's just a wide margin between what they're doing and what you're doing currently. And you can't, it's not that you can't get there, but it's everything that we've talked about in this episode so far. It's a deficit of knowledge. It's a lack of skills that you need to learn, but it's also like an emotional maturity to be able to recognize, like, I don't know what I don't know, and being able to push through when things get really hard and you're like, oof, that was awkward, that was embarrassing, that was really painful. And this is all the stuff that makes a really good entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, just the last thing I would say is just repeating, which is be curious. If you lose your curiosity, that's the first step to failure in my book. If I see there's another dog, there are dog trainers in my neighborhood and online, and the second I get in the mindset of, well, they're dumb, they don't know what they're doing, I would never do that, that's not, and I recognize that in myself, that's the first step to failure, is not being curious about who, what, why, where, and when. And I have learned train in a way that I said I would never train before.
Yeah, you've done a lot of things, that you said in the beginning, myself included, that you're like, I would never do that. And then, here you are. But that's evolution. That's like you growing as a person, and you're not supposed to be doing it the way that you were doing it back in 2022. If you're doing things in 2026 the way that you were doing them in 23, 24, that's a massive problem. Like, we all know that the landscape of technology changes so fast, and, it's not just about like what we want in the dog training industry. It's like other industries start setting expectations for us as well. And so what I mean by that is, like, a lot of trainers will be like, well, people have to come to me, or I do sales over the phone or whatever it is, right? The better example is, like, I want people to come to me. The most successful companies nowadays that everyone thinks about are like Amazon, like that's the perfect example. They bring everything right to you. And so it's not about like the other dog trainer down the street from you. It's also about like expectations societally that other companies have set, that like, yeah, Amazon brings stuff right to my house. Like, why can't this trainer just come to me?
Yeah.
Or, whatever it may be. And so you guys have really figured it out. Like, you guys have a hybrid model where you have people come to you for your sales appointments, your consultations, because you're so booked out with them. And you do such a good job of nurturing people to get them in.
Yeah.
But, you also go to people's homes for the lessons too.
Yeah. And can I say one more thing?
Please. Yeah, please do. And then I'll wrap us up, but I
Okay.
want to hear what you have to say. Yeah.
Careful of the advice you get from people you trust.
That's really well said.
And when I say that, I mean, here, that's how I stayed stuck, is because I trusted someone implicitly, and so I believed their advice. And even Kevin, even with your advice, I don't trust it implicitly.
I still haven't earned that, yet, but no,
Well,
it's a good point. Yeah.
Well, it's just because your advice has always worked, but I still don't trust it implicitly. And I think it's always really, really good to hear really good advice and still test it.
Right.
Things are meant to be tested.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people are afraid to start a new program or do something different. I still am to this day. I'm still afraid to start something new because I'm like, well, what if it doesn't work? What if it's not perfect? And so to me, that's the last thing I would say is, you could get stuck by implicitly trusting advice from people you trust.
100%. Really well said. Trust but verify, is another way of saying that, And yeah, I think the best way that you can kind of like look at advice from people too is, it's like, you'll know them by their fruits, and if you look at somebody else's life and you're like, this person is giving me an awful lot of advice, but wait a second, I don't want their life when I look at their life, that's also a very good barometer to use of like whether or not I should like take this advice or not. Yeah. So with that being said, I think we're going to wrap things up now. We have to hop. And I know, Bethany, you have other things you got to get onto today, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. We did a client success interview in the past. I know that was super helpful for me and other people listening to it and stuff like that. So we'll have to do another one of these again in the future. And I just appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with everybody. I mean, for everyone who's listening, like, I'll toot your own horn for you. Like, your business is doing DK a month. There's a lot of people who don't make 60K in a year. And so I think there's a lot of gold that was just dropped today that if you put it into practice, you will see great results in your business as well. So with that being said, I appreciate all you guys listening to this and always being supporters of ours. And if there's ever anybody you want to have us on, or topics you'd like for us to cover, just let us know in the comment section and we can do that. But with that being said, we're going to wrap things up and we'll see you guys very soon. See you guys.
Bye, guys.